Hi, I'm Dale Beaumont and welcome to Get Published TV. This is the only dedicated show on the internet to help you to write, publish and market your own best-selling book. Now, as you can see, we're on the blue couch today, and that means it's time to chat to another fellow author and publisher. Her name is Gina and she's from New York, and she's here today to talk to us about her books and what she's got coming out. So Gina, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now tell us a bit about your background and what brings you to be in Sydney, coming from New York originally.
Well, I was born in Russia, and I ended up moving to New York when I was about 6 years old. Grew up in the city, and then during university did a semester here in Sydney and just head over heels, fell in love with it. Went back to New York, got a corporate job, lasted about 4 months, and came back here.
Okay, great. So, and now you're here and you're working on some books as well. We're going to talk about those. But what inspired you to actually write your first book? And that was back in New York. Tell us a bit about that book and how it came together.
Well, I had been looking to write a book at that time, and it was one of those things where I knew I really, really wanted to write a book, and it's what I had always wanted to do.
And however, what kind of inspired you to do that? Because not everyone out there wants to write a book. What was it inside of you that made you decide to write yours?
It was actually one book that I read when I had first moved from Russia to New York. And that one book, reading that when I was about 8 years old, still sticks out in my mind as the most important book I've ever read. It was called A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And yeah, just something about reading that made me realize that that's what I want to do for other people. I want to be able to inspire them with words and move them to feel better.
Because books can be a really powerful thing, because you never know where they're going to end up and who they're going to touch, and clearly a book touched you and now you want to share that with others, which is great. So you had that seed planted in your mind, and then an opportunity came along. Tell us what it was and what you did.
Well, I met a business coach named Brian Littman in New York, and he was actually looking to have someone help him write his book. And I, at that time, was looking to write a book, so it was a really good partnership in that he gave me a muse and material to create a book out of. Right. And a great opportunity for me because I was able to try out writing my first book, not completely on my own. And
that's a really great strategy. One of the different ways I recommend people to get published is to team up with somebody that maybe has some elements that you don't have. So if you're a great writer, then find somebody else that has a really interesting topic and maybe has an inbuilt audience, and then you can join forces and tap into that. Or if you're someone that has an audience and has a message and you're not a good writer, then find somebody else you can team up with. So it can work in reverse as well. So you partnered up and you were basically then set to work to put the whole book together.
Exactly,
is that right? Yeah. Okay, and how did you go about doing that? Because tell us the title of the book and tell us about, it involved a number of different people in the book as well?
It did, yeah. It was basically it was compiling research from a bunch of business coaches. The name of the book is Coaching Blueprint. Coaching Blueprint.
Yeah. Okay.
And the idea of it was to teach other people how to create coaching businesses.
Right. Okay.
So it's a really interesting book to put together, and one of the most interesting things I found was the idea of putting a book together when you yourself don't really have any background material on it.
Yeah.
So it was almost a complete use of writing skills and interview skills, and really putting it together that way and getting other people's expertise in order to make it a great book.
Now when an opportunity comes up for a lot of people, they say, well, I know nothing about that particular subject, and can I ask you, did you know a lot about setting up a successful coaching business before writing this book?
I knew nothing at all.
So what did that process teach you?
One thing that I really, really discovered was that to be a good writer, you don't need to be an expert, and probably most of the time, the experts aren't the amazing writers. So I think your goal as a writer is to be a really good communicator and be able to spread that expertise amongst other people. And to really be adaptable, I suppose, to taking on new ideas and new information. So you were sort of researching, you then compiled all that information and turned it into a book. Yeah. How long did that whole process take you? It was a very rushed process. I joined the team pretty late on in the game, and we had about 4 months to get the whole book ready to be sold on the website. Right. And is it quite a substantial book, I'm guessing? Was it a couple of hundred pages? Yeah, it was about 150 pages. So it's fairly detailed. Yeah, right. So you got it all together, and then what was your process of then getting it published? Did you look after that area, or was it in the hands of the other party? We kind of split that. So while I did a lot of formatting and making it look like a really nice product, Brian took care of most of the actual selling of the book and marketing of the book, which I think is great if you already have an online presence built and if you already have a kind of a strong persona, then you could sell it that way.
Yeah. So you've really got to, you know, use each other's resources to their maximum advantage. And if they have a name, then you can obviously, you know, play to that name. Or if they already have a database, they already have a website, you've kind of got to use the best of each other's strengths.
Yeah.
Right. So you did that, and then what was the result, or what then happened once that book was released? How did it affect you or the business?
Oh, it's great. I think it's really inspiring once you realize that you could write a book. And I think that's probably the first step in becoming a writer, knowing that, oh, I could do this. So it's just a nice feeling being able to show that to people and being able to say, you know, now I'm officially a writer.
Yeah, great. And that's one of the probably, you know, great tip for people watching is that, you know, get that first book done, and however you get it done, it doesn't really matter if it's an ebook or if it's maybe something you sell through print on demand, or if you co-author with another person as well. Once you then can say, I'm a published author, it just gives you the confidence then to move forward and do other things and other projects. So you know, the first one you're going to do is always going to be the hardest, but it's going to then be so much easier from then on. So that then gave you the confidence to say, hey, you know what, I can do this, and I can do it myself as well. So what was the next step, and what's next for you?
Well, next I'm actually writing a book with my partner in New York, Jane Lerman, called The Limbo Years. And what gave us the inspiration to write that was that there's so many resources out there for people in their 20s, but the majority of them aren't very positive. So what we wanted to do was to compile a resource for people in their 20s that's really going to be inspiring and be that push forward and inspire people to write books, start companies, and do really, really amazing things with their lives.
And the title I find very interesting, The Limbo Years. It's something that's, you know, very intriguing, and it's short and punchy, but I'm guessing that there's going to be some type of subtitle in that as well. So what's the subtitle, and why The Limbo Years?
Well, the reason The Limbo Years, we actually fiddled around a lot with the title, which I saw in your other videos, but we decided on The Limbo Years because you're just in the middle, and you're neither here nor there, and one side of the world is telling you...
You're not a teenager anymore, but you don't feel like an adult. And
everyone's telling you to have fun and enjoy yourself, but on the other hand, it's also that time to get serious and start to take action and really turn into an adult. And it puts people in this weird state of like, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing?
Exactly. So you've got the title for Limbo Years, and there's stories in this book as well. So you want to tell us about those stories and what's going to be your format for the book?
Well, one thing that I learned from writing Coaching Blueprint was that it's a lot better to have people that are experts help you. And I think the main thing is just asking, and once you ask, people are more than welcome to come on board, and everyone loves helping out. So our idea was to get stories from people that have achieved success in their 20s. Because while we have some interesting stories, I think the important thing is getting everyone's most interesting story.
Great. So you're finding people that have had success in their 20s. Now they don't have to still be in their 20s.
Exactly,
they could be in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Because I think it sometimes does take a bit of time until you could really accurately reflect back on what you have achieved.
Sure, definitely. And so those people will contribute, are you talking about a chapter each? A chapter, okay. And
so it's actually going to be 20 stories for people in their 20s.
20 stories for people in their 20s, okay. So that's will be part of the subtitle, I'm guessing.
That's the subtitle.
Great, fantastic. And with this book as well, where are you up to? Are you starting to approach people right now, or are you submitting to a publisher or a literary agent? What's going to be your approach?
Well, we're putting together the book proposal right now, and we're also approaching contributors for a sample chapter. So we're going through the whole process of researching publishing houses and getting kind of the best book proposal together that we possibly could. Yeah,
now many people watching this are probably in exactly the same position that you are right now. Maybe they've done 1 or 2 books before in the past, and they're ready to take that step forward to play a sort of on a bigger level, and they're going to be pitching to either a literary agent or pitching to a publisher and putting together their synopsis and their query letter and their sample chapter and all the rest of it.
The whole thing.
Now you're probably maybe about 2 or 3 months ahead in the fact that you've been researching about this topic. So what advice can you give people watching that maybe we were a couple of months before about where they should go to next? What's the best approach?
Well, one thing I realized was no matter what your form of publishing is, so whether you're going to be doing an ebook or a book to help your business, whether you're approaching a publisher or not, I think the most important thing to do is to put a book proposal together.
Right.
And to make sure that you have a really nice set of sample chapters, as well as your chapter outlines.
So with the book proposal, this is, we're not sort of taking the path in this case of self-publishing, which we've spoken a lot about before on Get Published TV. We're going through the mainstream publishing channel, and you could either, am I right, pitch a literary agent, which will then submit to a publisher on your behalf and represent you, or you can then send a proposal to the publishers directly. But either way, you still need to have a book proposal.
Exactly,
right?
And the better the book proposal, the better the agent that you'll get, the better the publishing company that you'll get, the better, you know, advance that you'll get, and the better you'll be able to market your book then.
Okay, so it all comes back to having a great proposal.
Exactly.
So what are some of the key elements from what you've learned that go into a great proposal? What are some of those things?
I think the query letter is definitely really important.
Okay, so for people out there that know nothing, what is a query letter?
Well, the query letter is the thing that you first send to the literary agent or the publisher. So it's kind of that one chance that you have to really grab their attention.
Right.
And
so it's not a manuscript, it's not a 300-page doorstep. You're not even sending them a big 20-page proposal. At this stage, you're sending them a 1 or 2-page letter that is going to, you know, arouse their interest to say, I want to know more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, and what would go into that query letter? What are some of the things?
Basically, you want to start it off with a really good, punchy explanation of what your book is about. And then you want to go into who's going to buy your book and...
So who's the market?
Yeah. And basically anything that you could do to sell it. So maybe a short paragraph about yourself and why you're the right person to write this book.
Great. And if you have a certain following already, or if you're a speaker, they want to be knowing things like, well, what is the book about? Who's the market, and are people going to be buying this book, or is it, you know, too saturated already? And they want to know, who are you? Because they're not just looking for great books these days, they're looking for great people behind those books that'll then follow it up with television interviews or go on radio or newspapers. They're looking for personalities to go with books. Okay, so that's the query letter. And then is it sent as a letter, as a fax, as an email? What do you think is the best way?
I think that the letter is coming back, and I think that people sending things as emails is getting oversaturated, so it's really hard to catch attention with an email.
Right.
I think if you put a letter together, you reach them on a more personal level.
Sure.
Everything from physically holding it to the type of paper that you use really brings across your personality.
Good idea. Yeah. So going back to physical mail is probably, or snail mail as we sometimes call it, is probably the best way to go. And I'm sure that you could, you know, put it in a lovely looking envelope or even a package, or and I've even heard people do like a message in a bottle type scenario where they, you know, get a plastic container and they'll put it in a bottle. So there's all sorts of fun stuff that you can do, to make it stand out. Some people may say it's a bit cheesy and corny. Other people may say that they like it, but ultimately it's up to you. So once you've then written that query letter, as we're calling it, then either one of two things is going to happen, right? They're going to call back and say, "I'm interested. Tell me more," or "No, I'm not." Is that the case?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So if they say, "Yes, I'm interested," then what is the next step? What do you do next?
So then you would send over your book proposal.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, how have you learned about writing a book proposal? Because you're in the process right now and you're putting it together. So tell us about this book that you've got here and what you've learned from it.
Well, I've actually, I got this from an idea from an article written by Tim Ferriss, because I'm a huge fan of modeling what other people have done to become successful. And what he said was that he basically based his whole book proposal on this. Right. Just because it gives you exact, concrete examples. Right.
So I'm just going to hold it up there. It's called Write the Perfect Book Proposal. This is the book right there. You can search for it on Amazon.com. And this is what Tim Ferriss, the author of The 4-Hour Week, used. And that's been a New York Times bestseller for the last 12 to 18 months or so. It's a very, very successful book. And this is what he used. So again, you know, copying or modeling off successful people is certainly the way to go. So you've gone through this book, you've studied it, and that's what you're now using to put together your proposal.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're saying that this book gives a lot of concrete examples, right, that people can actually, you know, to example from.
Because I think a lot of times where people get stuck is in the formatting of it.
Right.
So while you have all the content in your head and you have this amazing, brilliant idea, but you need to find a way to get that across to someone and get someone else that's a complete stranger and doesn't know your background and knows nothing about you to see why you should be doing this and why this will make them money and why this will make you money and why you're just the perfect person for the job.
Great. So I'm just flicking through this book right now, and I can see there's a lot of examples in here for fiction writers and also non-fiction writers as well, because I'm imagining there's going to be some differences in the proposal based on the genre or the style of book that you're actually producing. And the other thing which I'm seeing it does as well is it goes through and tells you about, you know, when to send it, how to format it, and also then how to actually follow up to make sure that it's been received and then that it's viewed in the best possible light. Any other, we obviously can't go through this book in more detail. Maybe in a future episode of Get Published TV, I'll go through this book and I'll study and I'll pull out some of the good points and share them with you. But have you got a couple of tips right now, things that you remember from this book that could help people out there that are putting together their book proposal?
Well, one thing that I got out of it was the importance of having a really, really good sample chapter.
Right, okay.
Because that's really what's going to sell a publisher or literary agent onto your work. Because it's the only chance that they'll get to see exactly a little sneak peek of what your book will be. Right.
So what are the other elements then in that proposal? You've got the sample chapter. Are there any other things that you need to have?
There's also the promotional section. There's the competition, which I found the competition one really useful because it really forces you into researching your competition and what else is out there, which I think if you're doing self-publishing or publishing an ebook, you sometimes miss out on that.
Yeah,
where it's not forced, so you don't research as hard.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that they say to me, they come up with a topic, and there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there like this, because they've been to their local bookshop that has like maybe 50 books on the shelf. But you go into Amazon.com and there's like 300 books on that same particular subject. So you might think that your book is totally special and totally unique, but perhaps you maybe need to cast the net a little bit wider, because there may be lots of other books out there. Now, saying that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if there's a lot of books already in a particular category, what it says is there's already a demand for those type of books. So don't look on competition as a negative thing and thinking, oh, there's no more room for me. That's actually a great thing, because if you can follow up to say, here's 3 examples of books that have sold over, I don't know, 30,000 copies or whatever, that have all done really well, and this is where my books fits into that picture. It's like them, but it's different in this way, then they can go, oh, okay, well, we can see how we can pitch it.
Yeah.
And
that's really definitely useful, I think, because if you could find that little missing gap between all of those books, then you're proving that this huge market already exists for your book.
So you mentioned competition, you mentioned a sample chapter. What else? Any other things that are part of that proposal?
Promotional is very important.
Right.
So I think it's important to think about how you're going to promote your book and whether you're going to use social media or book signings or book tours. And it's important to identify those things for yourself and for the publisher to have confidence that you know, they're not going to be on their own trying to sell your book for you.
Yeah, and that's like what we were saying before, that publishers today are looking for people that are going to push their book just as hard as what the publisher is as well, because the publishers aren't going to do all the work for you, especially if you're a first-time author. You really got to get out there and hustle, and you've got to prove to them what are you going to do in order to help to promote those sales as well. So they're looking for you to take responsibility and also to have a bit of a game plan as well. But if you just say, I'm just going to, you know, sit back and wait for the money to roll in, then they'll tell you to go fly a kite, because you know, they're really looking for people that are going to put in the same amount of effort that they are in order to make the book a success. Any other points or tips that go into a great proposal?
I think it's also a lot about the organization of it. So you have to make sure that it's structured really, really clearly and that it just looks really physically appealing.
Great.
Because if somebody receives a really ugly proposal, then I think that's something that just gets chucked away right away, because it shows your lack of organization as an author, which is just starting off on a completely negative foot.
And I suppose, you know, attention to detail and, you know, understanding that style is important, and that books are highly visual, so you need to make sure that you use nice fonts and that things are formatted correctly. And if you can't, I suppose, show the basics of those type of skills, then how can you call yourself someone that's you know, a real book lover and someone that's able to create a quality product? Yeah, great. So if you want more information, then I'm guessing you could check out this book here, Write the Perfect Book Proposal, available I'm sure on Amazon.com. Otherwise, we're going to be going into this topic in a lot more detail in future episodes of Get Published TV, but I think you'd agree we've learned a lot from Gina and it's been very, very informative. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to say? Tell us a bit about your website and where people can get involved if they want to find out more about this book.
Yeah. Well, we're currently running a website called thelimboyears.com. And what we're doing before we get into writing the book is we're featuring stories from interesting and successful people, and basically all the kind of struggles that people would be going through in their 20s. Anything from work versus play and choosing whether you want to travel or get a job right away. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff up on there now. So there's lots to read through before the book comes out.
Yeah, so the website is thelimboyears.com.
Yep, thelimboyears.com.
And definitely go check it out, because I want you to see the example of what's being done here is that the book is still in process and it's in the proposal stage, but already there's a domain name registered, there's a website, you're already looking for stories, you're already creating your, what they would call platform or your audience prior to your book even coming out. And that is so essential, because if a publisher can see that you're already taking these steps, then they're thinking to themselves, well, we've got someone that is actually going to be really proactive and someone that is already creating an audience that we can actually sell this book to. So I think what we've done is very, very smart. So go there and check it out. Anything else you want to add?
The other thing is, I think it's really important to do something like that, almost try out your book on a small scale, just to test the popularity of it, because you don't want to spend half a year or a year working on something that just has no grounds of being successful.
Absolutely. And once you've got that group of people that are on board and supportive of your project, I'm guessing that there's so many ways in which you could use those 100, 500, 1,000 people to test and measure things. You could send them a sample chapter and say, guys, what do you think? You could send them different book titles. You could send them cover designs.
Exactly.
You could do so many different things to test. We've spoken about the importance of the actual copy on the back of the book as well, and there's maybe bullet points or testimonials. You might send them a list of 25 testimonials and say, we can only put 3 on the back cover. What do you think are the 3 best ones? Which ones grab you the most as well? So you can be using those people.
Exactly, and it's such a nice way to connect with them on a personal level as well.
Exactly. So the idea is that if you've got an idea in your head for a book right now, and you've starting to work on it, you should be thinking of marketing, not when you finish the book, but right back at the very beginning when you're starting, and laying that foundation early and not leaving it all to the last minute. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for coming on to the show. We'd love you to leave your comments in the section below on getpublishedtv.com. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have either been through this process or that are going through this process. So we want to hear your thoughts. If you've got some ideas about what you've done, what's worked for you, or what you've learned through the process, please leave them in the comments section, and let's keep this whole conversation going. And there'll be more episodes talking about this topic, so stay tuned, and thanks for watching Get Published TV. Thanks again, Gina.
Thank you.